Bob, welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Hey, thanks a million. I'm glad to be with you today.
This is so wonderful to talk to you. And we happen to be at this conference in Dallas, not Dallas, because I get yelled at Fort Worth, here at the Hills Church. And God is just doing some cool things. I was wondering if I can ask you first, just because Kevin's here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just, before we start talking about like Bob Goff and Love Does and all these other things, I just thought it'd be amazing for you to tell us who Kevin is and how he's here and all that.
Kevin's my teacher. He is. We're in this class. Some people thought I was his, but it turns out he was mine.
I love that.
And so we've just been learning together for the last year or so. Kevin has been incarcerated for a long period of time, and he recently was released because he's like the leader in the community. He was like the guy that rose up, and so they released him, and I was fortunate enough to hire him, and so we're doing life together, and he's teaching me as much on the outside of the walls as he was on the inside of the walls. But I go to San Quentin often, and I learn a ton while I'm there.
We get introduced to Kevin, and you just said today was the first time that he ever went on an airplane. And I was like, how simple is that?
I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And we were talking about the first conversation I had with Kevin when he had his newfound freedom. And I said, how does it feel? And he said, I've got pockets. And I wrote that down. I'm like, he has pockets. And because there's some things that you're able to have when you have freedom that you can't have when you don't. And so it made me think, because I'm like the king of metaphors. If they had the metaphor team in high school, I'd be the captain. But I was thinking, like, so what are you going to fill your pockets of? And what are you going to empty your pockets of? Like, so that would be kind of this life thing. And so I would just find wise teachers. Like I found Kevin is a wise teacher, and I'm sitting at his feet most of the time, just learning.
It's amazing. Bob Goff is joining us here on Sports Spectrum. You wear a Red Sox hat. Tell us the story of where the Red Sox hat comes from.
I do. My neighbor Carol was a huge Red Sox fan. I've yet to go to any baseball game. I've heard we have a major league team in San Diego.
That exists, yeah, the Padres.
Who would know? And so Carol was a huge Red Sox fan, and so she got cancer, and we knew she was going to be with Jesus shortly. And so we made a deal, and I said I would wear her Red Sox hat for the rest of my life and represent the Sox. But in exchange, every time Jesus walks by her, she needs to mention my name. And I'm keeping up my end of the deal. I don't know if she's keeping up hers. We will find out.
We will.
Yeah.
Hopefully together, right? Someday.
Yeah, that person said, I knew you not. I'm like, yeah, what's the deal? I've been being hissed at in New York.
I was going to say, you must not be popular when you go to New York.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. But the thing, it's actually a learning opportunity for me, too, because if the people that are hissing at me knew I was wearing my dead neighbor's hat, they'd feel so bad.
A little more empathy, I think.
I know, right? And so I just want to spend my time trying to understand the guy under my hat and not assume I know what's going on under everybody else's hat, that they probably have a reason why they're doing what they're doing. Even if they're doing some really lame things, they're probably either reflecting or reacting to something that happened in their life before.
That's awesome. Can you share with us a little bit? I've read it. Love Does is one of the best books I ever read. Whenever I tell people, when they ask me for suggestions for book, I go to Love Does. I know you share a little bit of your testimony in that. Can you tell us a little bit of your testimony? Just share that story with us about how you came to faith and why Christ is like so important to you in your life?
I'm thinking I just get hung up on testimony because I'm a trial lawyer and I know what testimony is, and that'd be like, you wouldn't want to hear that. That's just a bunch of facts.
Right.
But I can tell you what happened. There was a guy named Doug who is, everybody's got a friend in their life named Doug. And Doug and I were going to go out and shoot cans with BB guns. And so we're walking around the woods and we were like shooting. I had a little Daisy. Did you ever have one of those, a little Daisy BB gun?
Oh, yeah.
Like you could barely dribble the thing out. Well, he got a pellet gun, and you could pump that thing up so many times. It would go through concrete. And so I had my little Daisy. He had his pellet gun with a scope and all that. So we're going on, and all of a sudden, Doug isn't next to me anymore. I'm like, where did Doug go? I look behind a tree. I have become the next tin can. He shot me. And I'm like, he shot me in the gut. And it went in me. Not like paintball, like bruise. It was like, this thing's in me. So we're putting like leaves and dirt and stuff on this thing. We go to his house and we think we're going to get in so much trouble. I don't know why I was complicit in this, but so he gets some tweezers out. He puts some mouthwash in there and he's trying to get the BB out of me. And he starts telling me about Jesus. I'm like, you shot me. I didn't think that was allowed. And so he was just that, have you ever gone through the day and realized that your untucked shirt is one button off? Has that ever happened to you? That happens to me all the time.
Sure.
Well, Doug's a button or two off. And I think those are the people that I've learned the most from. Yeah. And I think it's just that idea that Jesus didn't go find the brightest scholars and the people that were in the ivory towers. He walked past them, as a matter of fact, all the religious community, and he found a bunch of fishermen that didn't get the nets on the right side of the boat. And he said, let's go change the whole world. And even one of the 12 he picked ended up being a Doug.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? So that just gave me a lot of hope. I saw in a different light what it meant to this follow Jesus, that it actually it wasn't like you had it all together and then you start the adventure, but then he meets us at the starting line, not the finish line.
Yeah. Reading your book, Love Does, and I know that you're, in writing this book, it was such a powerful way in terms of how you put it together, and it's impacted so many people's lives. You obviously know this. When's the initial yes to take the step to write this book? Can you go back to the idea of writing? Because was that your first book, by the way?
Yeah, it was. I was pretty good at writing legal briefs, but not very engaging literature. But we had started schools in India and Uganda, and we were like, we had lots of kids at the school because Uganda's in this 30-year civil war, and so we were spending so much money. And I was a pretty good lawyer, but I wasn't as good as I was spending money. And we were putting, like, candidly, we were putting like $20,000 or $30,000 a month against our house to keep these schools going. So this publisher calls up and said, "Will you write a book?" I'm like, "Will you build a school?" I'll trade
off.
Yeah, one school for one book. So they said, "Tell me about the school." And I said, "All right, 1,400 child soldiers and 100 teachers." And they said, "Big school." I said, "Big book." And I made them pay me in advance. I didn't know if it would suck. And so we wrote this book, and then a couple million copies later, we've got schools in Uganda and Somalia and Iraq and Afghanistan and India and Nepal. And it's really, our team is down in Congo in the Virunga jungle, starting one like as we speak. Yeah. And so that just is so encouraging. So I would just say to somebody listening, find your passion. We've spent some time both in your session and mine talking about what do you find as purpose in your life. And I'm not a guy, I'd make a lousy evangelical because I don't think we lead people to Jesus. I think Jesus leads people to Jesus. So if you're listening and you have a longing, you feel like you have a bigger purpose than what you're doing, I would say you're probably right. So let's go pick the lock. Let's figure out what that is. And it probably has to do with loving other people and loving them without an agenda. Because as soon as love's got an agenda, it's just another program.
You think that's why the book has resonated with so many people? Because that's it's sort of a foreign concept, I guess, in the society and the culture that we live in today. This social media world where everybody has an opinion and everybody wants to share that opinion, and you see a lot of people tearing down other people, and then you read your book and you just feel so encouraged, and you want to just take that simple philosophy, that simple statement of just love does, loving other people. Do you think that's why that book has resonated with so many people?
I think people can see a small reflection of themselves. If you've listened to somebody that you've resonated with, you see a little bit of yourself in them, something that you've longed for. It's like returning to a kinder place. Yeah. And I think everybody just wants to get back home. That's why, I don't know if you can remember this, but in Finding Nemo, the fish goes out, touches the butt, remember? Yeah. And then they get scooped up and they're zipping away, and Nemo's now on the boat. And the goggles, like the mask, falls off and has the address of where he's going. Do you remember the address?
Is it 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney?
It is. What a boss.
I have a daughter. That's why.
Yeah, I bet you can't even memorize scripture. But we remember 42 Wallaby because we want to help people get home. Yeah. And so if we can, in the conversations we have, in the books that we write, in the podcasts, is you could be doing other things with your time, but you just want to help people get home. And if you're driving on the road while you're listening to this, this is just a really kind guy who decided to have a podcast to help you get home and then to keep you company as it was happening. And so kudos for you for doing that. I'm not blowing sunshine at you. You found a purpose, and you said this is something that you've longed for in your life, and you probably connect with a lot of people that are longing for it in their lives. And so Jason decides, I'm just going to follow where that leads. Yeah,
that's pretty much what it was, too. And I remember, I want people listening, because this is a sports podcast, to know in 2016, I was working at ESPN, and we had what we call a fellowship group. That was sort of the politically correct word, but it was basically a Bible study, a time of prayer with 20 or 25 people from ESPN. And all of a sudden, one day I walk into our conference room to get ready for this time of fellowship, and there's Bob Goff Skyping in from San Diego talking to us. Do you remember that? And just kind of like, it, not just for that, but the opportunity to speak to so many different people from so many different walks, including the sports world. And there's just opportunities to really hone in on this idea of love does.
Yeah, maybe the idea is that we have some things that are in common. And you don't need a Bible verse for everything, but Acts 2 and 4, it said they broke bread together and they had things in common. And so if you find just people you can have things in common with, if you're listening and it's about lunchtime, just take somebody out, get them a muffin, and say, hey, what do we have in common? I'm just wondering. What do you think? Like, how many times you've been married?
Can you imagine if we just did more of that?
Yeah, just say, like, so what's been the best day of your life? When did you laugh so hard you wanted to pee your pants? just get real about like life stuff without like going artificially too deep too fast. Because if you do that in scuba diving, you get the bends and everybody dies. So what if instead you're just considerate and kind, and then when somebody says something that differs or collides with your worldview, you don't need to correct everybody. Using the metaphors of sports, which I should stay away from, like we're not umpires, call them balls and strikes, we're base coaches. Just tell people when to run. Yeah, if you want to steal the base, go for it, but I'm saying hold.
I love that. There's a great, one of the first things I ever learned about you was the idea, I heard you on a podcast, I think it was on Relevant, talking about this office at Disneyland. Do you still have the office at Disneyland?
I will, as long as Disneyland's there, it's my office. Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah. Tom Sawyer Island. I just decided that this one particular bench was my office. And years and years ago, and so I go there on Wednesdays, and it's just the best time. The last time I was there were 40 people waiting for me at the bench. Isn't that awesome?
It's amazing.
Rachel is the one that runs the little like raft that goes over there, and people ask her all the time, "Where's Bob's office?" Isn't that fun?
That's amazing.
And if you go in, I know it's a bit of a misdemeanor, but nailed in whatever. I nailed into the boards of that thing the key to my front door. It's the closest to the sword and the stone as you can get, and there's something beautiful and winsome about that. So have a place. I've got an idea. Why don't you just be available to the people around you if you're listening? Go get a walkie-talkie at Radio Shack if they're out of bankruptcy, and hang it from a tree somewhere, and just carry the other end around with you. And change the batteries every week or two. Wouldn't that be awesome to know that wherever it is that you work, Jason, there's a radio hanging somewhere. They go like, what's that? Jason's always on the other end. Listen, check it out. So I put my cell phone number in the back of a couple million books. I get all these calls. One lady called up and I answered. I said, hello, it's Bob here. She said, oh, thank God you answered. I'm like, are you okay? And she said, no, I heard you were dead.
So she's just checking. Just making sure Bob's still alive.
Just tell me you're not reading a newspaper dated tomorrow. But there's something, you're just going to encounter so many wonky people like me, like you. we're all a little bit more difficult than we think that we are. To just give people a little bit of grace. And if faith is a big deal for you, then Paul even addressed that. He said, always be ready to make a defense for the hope that's within you. But that people stop reading there, and it said, but to do it with kindness and respect. Yeah. And I think there's just something beautiful about that. You don't have to swing at every pitch. Aren't I doing great?
You're doing good, Bob. Yeah, sports and everything.
Sports guy, man. Like, come on. But you just don't need to be like, you can be correct and not right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we've got a lot of people that, I guess, maybe, but you go like, it just didn't feel right. And there's something just beautiful about this concept. We have these thought bubbles, like in the cartoons. Right. Just keep a couple more of your words in the thought bubble. Yeah. You don't need to let them leak out on everybody.
Great wisdom. We have a couple more questions here, a little bit more time with Bob Goff on Sports Spectrum. It's the end of January as we're taping this. I don't know when this will run, but I want to ask you about New Year's Day. And you always I didn't know if you did it this year, but you always do this unique New Year's Day parade that sort of nobody knows about. Can you share a little bit about that parade?
Isn't that great? Yeah, it's just this whole idea Jesus talked about, just like love God and love your neighbor. And so we started a parade 25 years ago. I feel like old, like the Crypt Keeper. But we started this parade. The first year there was 5 of us because we have 3 children. And we started at one end of the street, which is 8 houses long. And we walked to our front yard, and we were like chest bumped, and we were like done. But now if you go, there's like 800 people that show up. We've had every year we'll pick a queen for the parade and a grand marshal. Here's the crazy thing. We have a queen's brunch the day before, and all the former queens talk about the year of their reign. And it's crazy. They can't get gas without just it taking 45 minutes because people call you your majesty. Wow. But here's the crazy part. We've had 12 of them die.
Oh, my gosh.
I live on the block of death. But it's because the average age is like 80 or 85, and I'm moving in that direction. But the whole idea is to honor the people. And the only rule we have for the parade is this: everybody in, nobody watching. And so it's the least watched parade because we have all participants. And that might be a great way to think about your faith. Everybody in, nobody watching. And it isn't because Jesus needs your help, because I've asked him and he doesn't. But what he wants is our hearts. And he wants us to start with loving him and then next expressing that to our neighbors. And some of our neighbors are overseas and some are next door.
Yeah, I love that. I want to ask you about, this is a weird word, and you're probably going to shoot me down on this word, but celebrity, it's a weird word. When a lot of people, I just think celebrity is more of like influence, but people who know you. A lot of people now know you. And maybe they did before, but even more people now know because of writing books and social media and speaking. Is that weird for you to kind of have that where so many people are like, hey, Bob, I've read your book. I'm one of those guys. I've read your book. You've really moved me. You've inspired me. You've helped me on my journey. Is that weird for you?
Yeah, no, and I don't identify with the celebrity thing, because I think of that as like somebody that could melt your face with a Stratocaster. Right. Like Bruce Springsteen, he actually is a boss.
Sure.
But one of the things that I've noticed is that it keeps you actually more authentic. You want to be the same person on the surface that you are 30 feet deep, because there's nothing more disappointing than to have one version of a person that you meet, and then you meet him, you go like, what a jerk. Mm-hmm. I won't mention this Kenny Loggins concert that I was at, but he started singing, telling us the story behind the songs that were my favorite songs. I was like putting my hands in my ears. I'm like, no, you're wrecking it, right? And so while I still like the music, I want the story to sync up. And I think if we could be authentic, we don't have just various versions of us. And I really learned these from some unlikely people. One of them here in Texas, he was one of the contemporary Christian artists right out of the chutes, Keith Green. Yeah. And he died way too soon in a plane crash. But I wrote him a letter in 1976. He wrote me back. It was before the internet. Yeah. It was before oxygen almost. And so he wrote me a letter back, 3 sentences. I felt like such a boss because Keith freaking Green just wrote me 3 sentences. I couldn't even tell you what he said, but I knew how it made me feel. I get 300 emails a day. Everybody gets 3 sentences, and not the same 3 sentences, but it just makes people feel like you are you're worth responding to. And I think it won't be these big, like, things that people think of celebrities doing something farm aid, and that's terrific. How about just answering your emails? Or how about answering your phone? Like, just don't send anybody to voicemail for a week. See what'll happen. I don't know if it'll change anything for somebody else. It'll definitely change you.
Interesting. As we close, this is the last question we ask, and we ask this to every guest we have on, whether it's an athlete, a coach, an author, a pastor. Bob Goff, what are you learning from God today? What's the Lord teaching you where he has you in the season of life that you're in? What are you learning from God?
Man, I'm just trying to run home. I'm a grandpa now, and so we are moving the center of gravity from all other points in the compass back to San Diego. So I've just bought a camp, and we're renovating that. We're buying 24 horses this week, and I don't even know what inn to put the hay in. But I'm not letting that slow me down. I just go like that kind of it's described in Scripture as a childlike faith, not childish, just childlike, to think living in anticipation. And I think that's what I want to spend the rest of my days doing, like accessible, close to home, living in anticipation.
What do they call you now that you're a grandpa?
Oh, Opa.
Opa.
Opa! I've never been to a Greek wedding, but I'd be like, but I'm ready.
Bob Goff, this is awesome. Your books, Love Does, Everybody Always, and hopefully some more in the future. And just been a real treat to spend some time with you in person. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, likewise. Go get them.